Hey guys, Stealth here. I'm having a look at the new LANDJUT coalition here in Red Dragon. It's the new coalition of West Germany and Denmark, and to be honest, I don't find it that interesting. Denmark, I feel, wasn't that good to begin with. They didn't really have that many great units. They had some interesting units, of course, like the the Otomatic. Most people call it the Otomagic, so that's what I was about to say. They have some interesting infantry, but most units in this deck, which is a LANDJUT 10v10 deck, are still going to be German. Just because I feel that those are the best units that this deck has to offer. So let's do a deck review on these guys. I went with the EOTS KDOW command vehicle. I know that the Fudge has some armor. The problem is that I only get 5 of them, and well, if I'm taking fire on these guys, I'm probably doing something wrong. You could say it's a 10v10, and I'm going to be using this deck once the coalitions get fixed, because right now they are, for some reason, kicking out your prototype units, so keep that in mind if you want to use one of these decks. They are not fixed as I'm making this video. If you want to use some very heavy frontline units, you could also go with some of the command tanks. In the DLC3, these guys have been changed. Their prices have been reduced significantly. Now, if you were to compare the Leopard 1 command tank to the Fudge, you're going to see that the Fudge only has 1 armor, and for 25 points more you get a ton of armor on the Leopard 1. One of the main differences, though, is that you get 5 of these Fudges and only 3 of these command tanks, so you're going to have to be using these guys very sparingly. You also get some command tanks from Denmark in the form of the FFC Centurion. You get 3 of those, still a pretty low availability for a command vehicle. But 430 points, which is only 10 points more than the Fudge, you get something that has 9 frontal armor, 5 side, 2 back and 2 top. But their autonomy is only 450 and their off-road speed is terrible, and that's why I hate the Centurion line. I'm just not going to use those guys. So for now I'm going with the KDOW. I might switch to the Fudge later. I'm not sure yet, we'll see. Then a FOB, not much special to note about that. Logistics chopper, CH-53G, you get a lot of supplies. Unfortunately it's the only chopper or logistics chopper that you get in this section. And then the Mancati 6x6. Reason I did not go with the Unimog Cargo or the other Jupiter truck is that I don't feel they are that good. The Mancati travels at 90 kph off-road, the Jupiter only at 70, and the Unimog Cargo at 50, which is just too slow for me. I want these guys to arrive very quickly to resupply my guys so I can keep going. So that's why I went with the Mancati 6x6. Next up, Infantry. Keep in mind it's a 10v10 deck, but I do not intend to use these guys in Asgard in the middle, for example. I want to use this deck on the outskirts of the map, so the left flank and the right flank, where you have a lot of open spaces. You get to use tanks quite a bit, because you want to have good lines of fire. Reconnaissance is important, and I want to have some infantry for clearing out forests, or keeping forests for myself. So for that I got Panzer Grenadier 90s in the Marder 2. Reason for this is that the Panzer Grenadiers have, of course, a very nice anti-tank weapon and good other weapons like the LMG3 and the H&K G3A2, and they bring the Marder 2 with them, which is still a very capable vehicle. They just make the unit quite expensive because you pay 60 points for one of these. You could go with the standard Panzer Grenadiers, which makes them slightly less expensive, but I don't think it's really worth it because you get the same amount. You get 9 or 7 or 9 or 7. So I went with the standard, I went with the Panzer Grenadier 90 in the Marder 2. Next up, standard Panzer Grenadier 90 in the Marder 1A1. These guys are going to be my main punching power to clear forests. And if I have something that I really want cleared that the Panzer Grenadiers are struggling with, I can bring the Fallschirmjäger 90. These guys are coming in the Marder 1A1. And I went with the Fallschirmjäger in the Fudge to make sure that they are not going to get shot down like they would be if they were using the 53G or the Dornier 205. The weapons that they use are pretty similar. The advantage that the Fallschirmjäger have is that their assault rifle, I feel, is a lot better. I mean, you can fire this thing stabilized, so as they're moving at 30 kph, the same accuracy as they were standing still. So their accuracy is pretty damn stellar. Rate of fire is very, very high. They both get the LMG3 with exactly the same stats, so that's not that interesting. But the Fallschirmjäger managed to carry 2 more of the Panzerfaust 3 rockets than the Panzer Grenadiers do. But of course you pay 10 points more for these guys. And they have the elite level of training versus the shock troopers of the Panzer Grenadiers. But I don't get that many. I only get 7. One with these guys at elite. You could go back to veteran if you wanted to. But I think that at elite they're going to be just slightly more effective in clearing out anything that gets in their way. And then finally, I got the LLRKT M93. Surprise, surprise, they use exactly the same unit. The Fliegerfaust 2 uses the Stinger. The LLRKT M93 uses the Stinger. Exactly the same price point, the only difference is the assault rifle, but even there it's hard to find differences in statistics. They're both a 2-man squad, 15 kph, pretty damn slow. So I thought, well, why not? We're gonna go with the Danish unit over here in the M113G. Moving on to support, first thing you add if you have Danish units is the Otomatic. Very nice anti-helicopter unit, which can also be extremely effective at taking down tanks, vehicles and possibly infantry. Although I don't feel that it has the best rate of fire against infantry. Great unit, not that heavily armored and radar guided, so keep in mind that you need to shut this gun down, or shut the radar down, if you don't want to get this thing shot down by seed. My other AA unit is the Flakpanzer Gepard A2, and I feel that combined with the Automatic I have a very, very good anti-helicopter force. Again, radar guided, so targetable by seed, need to keep that in mind, but if I disable this main gun, this twin autocannon, I still get the Stinger. They are pretty expensive, both of them, 65 and 80. So if you feel that you need a cheaper AA unit, you could go with the Flakpanzer Gepard base one, or the Gepard A1, which is 55 points. But I think that if I just keep these guys alive, if I micromanage them correctly, and if I don't expose them to enemy fire too much, because they do have some armor, but not that much that they're going to take tank shell after tank shell, I think I can keep them alive. Next AA unit, EOTS Hawk. This is one of the additions that the Danish really help Germany with, because Germany only has the Rolands. Now the Rolands are good units, they are good AA units, but they are all radar guided. And their range is 3500, whereas the EOTS Hawk has a range of 4200. And they are not targetable by radar or by seed, they do not have the radar tag. So that makes these guys attractive because they do not need as much micromanagement as some of the other units would. If I want to RD something, if I want to use smoke screens, I got the Panzer Mortar Carrier 113. There are several other options, although not that many. I got the 113 or the HS3, sorry, the HS30. Difference being that these things are slightly more mobile, they get a few more shells, otherwise the stats are exactly the same. But that little bit of extra mobility might mean that these guys can make it out of an artillery or a counter-artillery barrage, whereas these guys might be struggling with that. Also their autonomy is significantly better at 480 versus 270. And if you compare this one, not the HS30, the M113, to the M125, you're going to see that this one fires only an 81mm mortar, which significantly reduces the HE power to only 3 versus 5. You do get a ton more shells, but usually 63 shells on 7 mortars should be more than enough. And then finally, if I want to clear an area for tanks, or if I want to start panicking units and damaging them, I got the Mars. I rarely use these guys. I'm more of a, I suppose you could call it classic artillery guy. I like the M109A3, although they're not that accurate. I like the 1110 as well, because they got that very high HE power. The problem is that their rate of fire is pretty low. Their dispersion is about this, or I believe exactly the same as the Mars. hang on, comparing the Mars to the Mars, comparing the Mars to the M110, 4550. And I think that the Mars is slightly better at sniping stuff. The thing I need to keep in mind is that they have a minimum range, being an MLRS. And with that minimum range I need to be a bit careful, because it means that I cannot bring in the Mars from or near the front line. But then again, you want to keep these guys next to a fob, because they only carry 12 missiles anyway. Next up, tanks. All you're going to find here is German material. Leopard 2A5s, nothing special here. One card of Leopard 2A4s. Solid armor penetration, great accuracy on these tanks. Good mobility, good autonomy. I really like the Leopard line, especially Leopard 2 line. Two cards of Leopard 2A1s. These are going to be the mainstay of my deck. This is going to be my main firepower. Again, good speed, good autonomy, good frontal armor, good armor penetration, good accuracy. It's just a very nice all-round tank. So I went with two cards of Hardened. And then Leopard 1A5, just your standard Leopard 1A5. If I want to destroy some vehicles, if I want to give my infantry some fire support, this is the tank that I would be using. Reconnaissance wise, here we're going to see some of the Danish units again. In the form of the KUs, reconnaissance helicopter. The Germans already had the BO-105M, which I think is slightly slower, 240 versus 260 on the KUs. You could go with the Scout Defender, but you're going to sacrifice very good optics for good optics, and you gain 14 70mm rockets, which I think is absolute crap. You do get the option to take the PAH-2 Tiger. It is a very, very nice helicopter, but I only get 3 or 2 in this deck, which I don't think is that many, so I went with the KUs. Then the Danish Spejdervogn M95. Great reconnaissance unit. It's very, very quick, 110 kph off-road, which is as fast as most tracked vehicle or all tracked vehicles go on-road. And with this they carry very good optics, medium stealth, got great autonomy, and they carry a machine gun, although this is not something you want to be using. I want to keep these guys as passive spotters, or helping them from bush to bush, where they're going to be in cover and still keeping their weapons off, just telling me what they see. Next up, German unit, Fern Speyers. Sniper team transported in the CH-53G. I know that there are other options, like for example the Jaeger 90, but I like the exceptional stealth on these guys, so that's why I went with the sniper team instead. And then I got the M41 DK1. I believe this thing got a decrease in price. I think it was 30 or 35. And at 20 they are much more appealing. I haven't really used them. Maybe not at all, I'm not sure. Their accuracy, as they sit still, is great, but their stabilizer is terrible. They fire kinetic rounds, doing 10 armor penetration, so don't expect these things to start killing T-72 BUs, they're just not meant to do that. But I get a high amount of them, I get 9, and I want to use these guys in combination with my other tanks. And considering that they have good optics, medium stealth, which is surprising for a tank, 750 autonomy and 70 off-road speed, I want to try these guys out. Maybe I'm going to switch to 2 cards of Spejdervogn or get my beloved Leopard 1A1 in here. We'll see. For now I want to see if these guys perform well. Vehicle wise, not that many. Only familiar units like the Marder VTS-1 and the Laro TO2. This one is going to be fire supporter. This one is going to take down heavy tanks. And talking about heavy tanks, if the Laro TO2 might not be able to get into position fast enough, I got one card of Fennec TO2. I think that these guys are a major advantage over the German helicopters, because the German helicopters have a lower accuracy by 15%, which is pretty significant. They do carry 2 missiles more, but they have the same armor penetration, and for 5 points less, I'll take the Fennec TO2 any day, because it has a lot more accuracy. It may carry 2 missiles less, but it's also faster, so it's going to be faster to go back to the FOB and come back to the front line. Only one helicopter. I know that the 105 might be useful, but I'm not going to do heli rushes with this deck, so I won't be needing a helicopter which has AA missiles in this deck. And besides, I got plenty of AA capability in the Otomatic, the EOTS Hawk and the Flakpanzer Gepard A2. In the air tab, I got 4 cards. I got the F-16A Block 15. This is my air superiority fighter. It was touch and go on whether I was going to take this one or the F4 FKWS. Reason I went with the F-16A Block 15 is that they are 20 points cheaper. Their accuracy is slightly worse, or at least on the long-range missile. Short-range missile, they're slightly better. ECM is slightly worse, but the veterancy is the main thing I was looking at. You can get 2 trained F4 FKWSs or 2 elite F-16 Block 15 or F-16A Block 15s. So I went with these guys, further boosting their accuracy and probably guaranteeing a hit with the Sparrows, and most certainly guaranteeing a hit with the AIM-9Ms. And their HE power is slightly higher than the MRAM that is carried by the KWS. Next up, Seaplane. Your standard Tornado ECR, nothing special here. It's a great anti-radar plane, carrying 4 anti-radar missiles, which I believe it double taps, so it fires 2 missiles at 1 radiation source, so 1 radar, allowing them to take down radars very, very quickly. They do take quite a while to be both repaired and rearmed, so keep that in mind. But once they do fly out, you're probably going to get a lot more, or well, it depends on what you hit, of course. But with one flyby, you can usually get 150 points worth of kills, so that is why I like this one. You could go with, you cannot go with another one. I was thinking about the Puff, but that's another unit. That is not in this coalition, unfortunately. One Peace Rhine, it is veteran. I want to use this as my tank sniper. If I have a heavy tank that's out in the open, I want to quickly get rid of it where I don't have availability for example, the Fennec or the Laroto 2. I can go with the Peace Rhine, and it has Fire and Forget Mavericks, 50% base accuracy, but I believe that with the veterancy, I will get this up to, well, 65, maybe even 70. And that is definitely going to help me kill those tanks quickly. And finally, F-35 Dragon WDNS bombers. This is an interesting addition. If you compare these guys to the Tornado IDS, you're going to see that the Tornado is a multi-role, whereas the Dragon is just a standard, well, it's classed as a multi-role because it has a main gun maybe, but I suppose you could call it a bomber, because that's all it does. This one I would class as a multi-role because it carries the AIM-9L. It can do some damage to airplanes and helicopters, but for 20 points less I get a bomber which is slightly more capable, because this one drops 4 500 kilogram bombs and this one drops 6. ECM 30% versus 30, so that's the same. Air detection is good. Well, they don't need to do dogfighting or fighting any other airplanes anyway, so that's not a problem. They're slightly slower than the Tornado IDS. That might be something you have to keep in mind. But otherwise, I think that the Draken is a nice addition to, well, for example, to, I suppose you could say, a majority or major German deck. So that's the deck I'm going with. I haven't tested it yet, mostly because I cannot test it yet. As I'm recording this video, the coalitions, or the new coalitions I should say, are bugged. You cannot use prototype units. So some of the prototypes that are in here I cannot be using. The game will think you're using a general NATO deck, which completely disables all of the prototypes. So I would not have the Otomatic, the EOTS Hawk, the Leopard 2A5. I don't think there's French Speyers. No, they're not prototypes. Spejdervogn are prototypes. Vehicles like the Marder 1 or the VTS 1 would not be available. The Marder 2 would not be available. Fallschirmjäger, prototype, not available. So for now I'm going to wait for a hotfix that is hopefully going to come out later today. And with that I can finally start playing these coalitions, because I do look forward to using a combination. But overall I think that this coalition, the LANDJUT one, does not add that much. It is mostly, as you can see by all the flags, a German deck which just gets some interesting Danish units. So, as someone already pointed out, it's like the Danish are hitchhiking with the Germans, because the Germans are still the majority of this deck. So with that, that's this deck review done. I hope you like it. If you do, let me know about it by clicking the link or the like button down below. If you want to use this deck code so you can make your own adjustments or try it out in battle, the deck code is in the description down below, but as I mentioned, it is not working yet, not even in skirmish. So until they fix that, I would try not to use these decks. With that, it's the end of the video. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time.